You're tuned in to Shop Talk, presented by RaceOnTexas.com. Here's your host, Caleb McFarland.
Thank you for joining us again. Here we are, episode 7, lucky 7 of Shop Talk. And joining us this week is old Mr. Ray Allen Kulhanek out of Conroe, Texas. Ray, it is great to finally get a chance to sit down with you and kind of let people know a little bit what goes on behind the old mind of Ray Allen Kulhanek and behind the wheel.
It's good to be on, man. I appreciate the invite.
You know, I've gotten to know you, a little bit closer, outside of just announcing, but more in the friendship kind of side of things over the last several years. And, you've a lot of people don't know, man, but you've, you don't really show it out too much, but you've been through a lot in the last 5 years as far as racing goes, and sprint cars and changing around and running different cars here and there. But everything always brings you to where you are. So like how what brought you to where we're at here in 2021? Did you start out running open wheel stuff with dwarfs and then work up to sprints and come back, or No,
my background started in 97 as far as cars went. I've been racing something since I've been able to walk. My first race was, I think, at the age of 3 years old, and it was a tricycle race at the Brazoria County Fair, and it escalated from there. I went into motocross and then BMX racing, and then got into cars at the age of 14 in 97, and went from that to a stock car, from that to a street stock, from that to a modified, and from the modified to the sprint cars, and then just kind of everything in between. I've touched and dabbled in pretty much every class that races on dirt now. Yeah,
and it pretty successfully at that. Might I add? You're pretty consistent. No matter what you get in, and the versatility is just. I'd almost say it's unmatched, to be able to go between, running a sprint weekend, or say running a sprint one weekend, then jumping in a dwarf, and then a modified or a late model the next. It's, you don't really see a lot of people doing that nowadays.
No, and a lot of that, I think, just kind of came from my background as far as, we didn't have, a whole lot of money and stuff. And I guess you could say in my era, as far as, my age goes, back when I was, 14 and starting to come up, at that time it was, I don't say it was easy, but it was a lot easier for drivers to get rides. There was a lot more car owners and stuff in that, that time than what there is now. It just seems like there's a lot more owner drivers than there are just owners. And so that being the case, it's just I've met a lot. I can't even tell you how many people I've met, over my career, and I've met so many great people, and like I said, and everybody that I've met, through the racing deal has pretty much just, everybody always says, and it's totally, cliche, but it's everybody in the racing deal is family. Everybody is just a big racing family.
That's come up at just about every episode we've had so far, is touching on it being generational and the racing family within the community of friends. And it's really always I'm going to say a beautiful moment when you see the racing community come together. And we saw that, with the passing of, those that know him, Pawpaw Kulhanek, just with as many, hearts and people's lives that he touched, with the dwarf community coming out. If I remember right, the video, it went viral.
That was pretty neat. And so when they did that memorial deal for him, which was, the very next night, after his funeral, Marvin and I had talked, and Marvin, told me, he's like, look, if, you want to stay home and be with the family and all of that, then that's what you go do. And a lot of people don't know this, and I was upset that I wasn't there for the memorial part of it, them doing the race for him.
Right, right.
But the reason I wasn't, and I don't know if it, many people even know this, but the reason why I didn't go to it was because the last conversation that I had with Pawpaw before he passed was he always asked me almost every week. He called me every week, hey boy, where you racing this weekend? And the last conversation that I had with him was that I was going to go race a sprint car that weekend.
Right, right.
And so that was the last thing that I told him I was going to go do. And so that's what I went and did, which, I mean, in all honesty, it turned out to be a shit show. I knocked 2 front ends out of my car and stuff that weekend. And I mean, in all honesty, I knocked more front ends out in a weekend than I had in probably about 5 years. I've normally been pretty good about not tearing my stuff up, but
right, yeah.
I was racing really hard. I was racing with a heavy heart, not that my mind wasn't in the game, but it was just kind of one of those deals. I wanted to win so bad, for him.
Exactly.
And, I mean, and in all honesty, the Saturday night race, I had a race car to win, and we were in contention when I drove up, from mid pack and got up to the top 3 and was running the leaders down. So it was one of those deals. It was my race to lose kind of deal, and I screwed it up. So
it happens. I mean, the phrase "running a talent," we throw it around in the racing world a while, but it's kind of one of those kind of moments where it's you don't. It's not that you run out of talent. It's that you just like you say, like a heavy heart. Like you have those that have tuned into our other podcasts. Talking about sprint car racing is it's a very mental game. I mean, if you have like a half a second where you're thinking about something else other than, marking your line, then it changes the ball game like quickly.
And in all honesty, I mean, that is 100% true. I'm just one of them, or one of the guys that when I sit in a race car, there's nothing else in my mind, in my life that goes on that even crosses my mind when I'm sitting in a race car other than just winning the race.
Right. Yeah.
All it boiled down to was I was trying too hard. And instead of being my normal, steady Eddie and cool head and keeping a race car under me type deal, I was doing all of that except for I was just trying way too hard.
Well, you said keep calm. I mean, anyone that's kind of seen you after a not fun heat race, I mean, I don't know how much calm there can be in that.
Right, that's true.
It's been a kind of mentioned, it's been a very eventful 5 years for you. Both with life, on and off the track. Been running a new job in the last couple of years, traveling the roads, driving trucks, and traveling the roads within racing as well. And I remember you and I, we shared a pretty candid conversation. I want to say it was beginning of last year at 105. We started kind of talking about the man, I'm drawing a blank here. Where was that? Oh, all right, there we go. Had to look at my note. The incident over at Lucas Oil Speedway, and just to kind of touch on some of what we talked about in that, it's kind of, if you would kind of explain a little bit about what happened in that, the process of the whole weekend and the trip, and then all of a sudden now here we are and we got a problem in the race car.
Yeah, so I was racing for Bruce Griffith at the time, and he had offered me a great opportunity, and we going into that weekend, the plan was, because the Gulf South schedule had actually or season had ended,
right?
So we were going to finish the rest of the national tour schedule to end out 2016. And anyhow, the first race after the Gulf South season had ended was at Lucas Oil, which was the Jesse Hockett Daniel McMillan Memorial. And that, in all honesty, that is probably one of my very favorite racetracks to go to. It's the most beautiful facility you'll ever see, and the racing there is phenomenal. And To go along with that, their fire crew and safety crew and stuff is second to none.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how grateful I was to have an accident like that and to be at that facility.
Right. Yeah.
But
Hands
like I
down.
said, that night, we'd kind of been struggling with the car, and prior to getting up to Lucas Oil, we had had all of our engines and stuff sent over to Wells, and had everything freshened, and then we went through dynoing all three motors, and we put a stumble valve and stuff or whatever, added that in there, and changed a couple of things up on the fueling. And anyhow, so when we went and raced the first night, night started out really good. We started last in our heat, and I think I drove up to second, or I won. I don't remember.
It was if I remember right, it was second, because I remember watching some of the recap stuff. I mean, it was in position to take a lead, but
yeah,
we were up there for sure.
Yeah, I know we were high point man, or second in points after the first heat, and when they have over, I don't remember if it was 45 or 50 cars, they run the double heat deal, and so we went out for the second set of heats, and ended up, like I said, we had been struggling with this car, and Bruce had brought Rick Ferkel in to crew chief and stuff, and I had kind of told Rick, what I was struggling with the car, and he's like, what about changing this and this? I said, man, I'm afraid to. I said, but you're the crew chief, so you make the call, and I'm going to drive.
Right.
It.
Yeah.
So anyways, we set ourselves back in the second heat, which relegated us to a B, and had to finish in the top two in the B to transfer to the A, and then I was leading the B. And anyhow, about 2 laps into their B main, I had sprung a fuel leak.
Right.
And so I was steadily just getting sprayed with fuel, and I knew as long as I was leading the race and had open racetrack where I could control the situation, then I would have it under control. And we ran all the way until I was going into turn 3, and we were supposed to be coming back around to take the white flag. And I ran up on 3 lap cars, and they were all side by side, and I didn't have a choice but to try to, drag the brake and not let off the throttle, but try to just kind of roll out. And it was just enough to just kind of light the candles on the headers, and it lit up. And when it did, I just had to do everything by feel, because I had to close my eyes, and I was trying to get the car stopped without, turning it over.
Correct. Yeah. And plus,
so
not really, knowing what all's behind you to not compound it for anyone else trying to get into that corner as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of knew, we had a little bit of a gap, a couple laps prior to that. And I kind of felt like I didn't really change my pace too much, so I didn't feel like he was probably going to gain on me too much. So I really wasn't too worried about nobody running over the back of me as much as, like I said, I wanted to get the car stopped without turning over, because I knew if we turned over, then I'd be in big trouble. So I knew where the cushion was at, and so I closed my eyes, and as soon as I went over the cushion, I knew how far, it was off the wall and how much time I'd probably have, kind of guesstimating at it. And so I just wanted to get the car spun around and back up to the wall, and that way I didn't get myself pinned in any way. And
correct.
And like I said, I got it backed up, and I did every bit of this with my eyes closed and just by feel and knowing where the racetrack was at, and just jumped out and started rolling. And like I said, it wasn't about 3 seconds, 4 seconds at tops that I'd gotten out of the car, and they were already on top of me, spraying me, and got the fire put out.
And there's everybody kind of knows the phrase in the moment from Talladega Nights, and he's sitting there, help me Ricky Bobby and all that. But that in a moment like that, man, there's no Ricky Bobby. There's no help me Ricky Bobby and Tom Cruise. You're at that moment, it's a completely different thing, from, jokes and phrases that people quote from movies here and there. But, it's, like you say, I mean, you're in that moment of just complete focus. I mean, your eyes are shut, and it puts you in a completely different, I'm gonna say, mind space. Because it's of course, it's not something that you train for. It's
No, I'd
you know.
never had a fire like that ever. That's the first fire I'd ever been in, and like I said, I've seen enough racing, been around it my whole life, and I've
Yeah.
seen enough accidents to kind of, in the back of your mind, what you need to do or what you should do, and you see mistakes that people make, and not to do that, or things they do right, and that things you need to do if it
Correct.
happens. And so my biggest deal was just to not panic. I didn't want to get my neck restraint hung up in seat belts, and it's too easy to make things like that happen. And it was really a calm moment, even though I was in a blaze.
Yeah.
The first move was just I reached down, I grabbed the steering wheel, threw it out the side, grabbed my belts or whatever, unlatched them. I put my arms inside of my shoulder harnesses and just kind of threw my arms out to get my shoulders out of it. Grabbed the cage, pulled myself out, and went straight to the ground and just went to rolling. And it was about the third roll before I started panicking at that point, because by the time I was on my third roll, I was like, "Holy shit, this is hot!"
Yeah, you could feel it for sure.
Right. So at that point, I started kind of panicking then, but you're just, like I say, you're just hoping somebody's going to be there to help you get the fire out.
That's right. And I mean, and then after that moment, we hit a moment ago about the Racing family coming together, for your family with Pawpaw, and and with you too in this instance. I remember getting approached by a few people to kind of try to help spread the word and see what we could do at Battleground. If I remember right, I was announcing out there here and there, and we had a fundraiser event, pass the helmet kind of deal to kind of help y'all out with medical expenses and things. But it's almost a I'm not gonna say a Cinderella story, but just like a kind of beautiful story of it, because we go from starting that type of like a racing community coming together in an aid campaign like that at Battleground, and then you go through your healing process, you're rehabbing, and then, a couple months later, you're at Battleground and you're back on top of the world. I mean, it's pretty cool, when you from that perspective. But I don't think a lot of people kind of know the history on the story to that. But had to go through, just, I mean, I burnt my finger, working in the kitchen a few weeks back, and I know that was painful as hell. But it's a different ball game, as far as a pain level, and so I don't think people really understand, how much, I don't know really how the wording to use, but
the thing that was the most painful out of all of it, honestly, was actually the skin graft part, where they actually took the skin from. That hurt worse than the burns did.
Ooh.
That was probably the most painful thing, and I say that's what hurt the most and what hurt the longest.
Right.
The worst part was when they were pulling the staples off.
Oh,
or
man.
out of it. That was they the first day that they wanted to pull staples out. They come in and like, okay, well, you're going to be on the morphine, and here's a pain pill, blah blah blah, and
right.
And so anyways, we made it through about half of them, and I mean, just tears just running down my face, and I'm just biting my pillow, just.
Oh yeah.
And so anyways, I was like, we got to stop, I can't go anymore. And they're like, okay, no problem, we'll get to the rest of them later. So then the next morning rolls by, and I had been, in that hospital for like 2 weeks, and I wanted to go home. I was in Springfield, Missouri, and
right.
I hadn't seen my little girl, and I wanted to go home. So I asked them the next morning, I said, what do I have to do to get out of here so I can go home? And they're like, well, we have to get the staples out, and you have to go through I don't remember if it was an hour or 2 hours of physical therapy. And I was like, all right, let's get it. And they're like, well, you want to get all the rest of it out and do all the rest of it today? I said, yeah, I want to go home.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I sucked it up and went. I had to do I had to be off of the morphine for 24 hours to be able to get released. So they cut my morphine right then and just started pulling staples.
Oh my gosh.
So anyhow, I got them out and I got to go home the next day. But that, like I said, that part there was the worst pain it was. And then the healing process, like I said, where they took the skin from, that was the worst as far as the pain really went. And then just physical therapy, going back and forth to doctors, getting, fitted for compression sleeves. And then me, I'm an outdoors person. Like I cannot stand to be inside. And so that was the other thing, I had told or asked the doctors too, what's my lead time looking like on being able to, get back to racing. And they were saying, March or April of the following year. And I was like, well, shit, our racing season
this isn't going to work for us. Yeah.
Beginning of March. So what can I do? And they're like, well, you're literally going to have to stay inside. You can't go outside, and you're going to have to bathe every day and wash your scars and get everything, cleaned every day and keep wrapping it and putting new bandages on, and just over and over and repetitive. And one of my best friends, Dubby, he was actually the one that came over every day and changed my bandages. We had it timed out. We knew what time he was going to, be there by the time he got off of work. So at a certain time, I went and got in the bath and took my bath. And by the time I was getting out and walking in, or I should say stumbling or limping into the living room, he was coming through the door, and we were putting new bandages on, and then he'd leave and go home. And I'd just lay there and do nothing until I got released.
Yeah, it kind of gets to a point, man. It's kind of like you had a undesired kind of start to 2020 and COVID quarantine, as far as sitting around watching TV, getting your Netflix on. But it's it gets old, man. I can't imagine, because that was for what, 2 months, because wreck happened in September, right?
It's like September 22nd or 23rd, and then the Texas Grand is always, the middle of November, and and Randy Allen and I, obviously we talked, pretty much kind of every day, and by the time we got about a week out from the Texas Grand, I was out and about and doing, moving around pretty good, and I just wasn't supposed to really do anything until they released me.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think it was like 2 weeks before I got to get back in a race car, they released me to where I could start, driving myself. So at that point, I was driving over to Randy's shop and driving to bug anybody that I could, just to be out of the house. But,
get to try to get a little normalcy back.
But yeah, so like about 4 days or so before the Grand, Randy and I were talking, and I was telling him, I was like, man, there's a good possibility I might get released this week. And he's like, well, that's good, I said, yeah. So let's go race the Grand. And he is like, well, you ain't released yet. I said, well, I think I'm going to get released, so let's go race the Grand. And he said, well, he's like, we ain't got but a couple things to do to the car for it to be ready, but if you get released, then yeah, we'll go race it. Yeah. And the day of, qualifying, it was the day of my doctor's appointment, and I went to the doctor's office, and he said, you're released, you go back to full life or whatever. And I said, so I can get back in a race car? He said, you can do anything you want.
Wow.
So I left the doctor's office and we had already got the car and stuff done and loaded and kind of made our minds up if I didn't get released and Randy was going to race.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Just have to kind of plan for it. Just change drivers. But
right. But yeah, I got released and went to the track and went back to racing.
And the pinnacle kind of pinnacle moment of that is you ran out there and the heat race. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was just a good solid run, kind of getting the feel back. And then a main time came for Saturday and started top 10, and within a few laps, next thing I know, on the microphone, I'm like, oh my gosh, Ray Allen sitting here leading this thing. And what's that feeling like, man, to just kind of, they always say the phrase, when you get knocked off the horse, you got to get back on. But I mean, going through something like that and then climbing back into a car, it's, is it I'm not going to say intimidating, but is it something that kind of like weighs on you a little bit, that, kind of brings it back?
No, I mean, well, the first time back in the car after it did a little, I mean, I got in the car and got a little spooked, before we even got the car fired off. Just pushing me through the pit area. And of course, November, there's always a little bit of a cool breeze, and I felt cool air, blow on me while they were pushing me around in the pits, and I panicked, thinking I was being sprayed with fuel, and I snapped. I was like, dumbass, it ain't even running. But yeah, so, the first lap, I don't know. As soon as I fired the car off, got on the racetrack and got in the throttle, it went away. I mean, I was a little rusty just because I hadn't been in a car a couple months.
Right.
But, I went right back to what I was doing. I just finished second in the heat and finished second in the A main qualifier, and that put us on front row outside. And going into the Saturday portion of it, me, Randy, and Boo, we all just kind of put our heads together and was like, look, this is what we need to do. This is what we're going to do. And got the car dialed in, and just, we all knew, kind of the way the racetrack panned out, that my main way and main thing that needed to happen for us to really have a shot at winning was to get a good enough start.
Right.
And
right.
I knew if I could at least run in side by side with him, then we would probably be able to carry the momentum and get around him. But it worked out that I got a little bit of a better start than he did. I think he might have spun the tires a little bit, and like I said, I got out in the lead, got to control the race, and had a good race car, and we won.
Yeah, and we hadn't seen many laps on Battleground since it closed, but for those that don't remember, I mean, turn 1 and 2 on a start, especially after a just a regular weekly night of racing, but let alone 2 days of a Texas Grand, it makes that first corner ever more tedious, because there's really not much left in the track. And so if you can make that happen and get that line to work, and like you say, it's stuck, that's the rest is history. And the next thing we know, 25, 30 laps later, you're climbing out of the race car, and it's man, it was a fun moment. I mean, I remember you could see, the pure joy, not between just yourself, but, with your mom and Ray, you are Ray Allen, with Randy Allen, and, just everyone in the family, mama, papa, everybody that was there they just knew how important that moment was of getting back in the car, and, let alone getting back in it and winning it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of solidified, that it's, what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
My whole life, all I ever wanted to do was race. That's all I've ever had in my mind. I played sports growing up and did other things, and I've enjoyed other things, and I still do. But my first, true love was racing, and I call racing, my mistress. I mean, I don't know how to I don't know how to do life without racing.
Yeah.
And even if I wasn't driving a race car, some way, shape, or form, I'd still be involved in racing, one way or another. And I plan on, I want to try to race as long as the health will, allow. And my fiance and both of our girls, support me in doing it. And we're just a racing family. I was raised in a racing family. She was raised in a racing family. And this is just kind of all we know. And we, hell, I met her at the racetrack. So, I mean, it's kind of just one of those deals. I mean, this is just when it's in your blood, it's in your blood, and you can't get away from it. It's the worst drug there is.
I can agree to that, man. I first came around racing after my uncle bought a racetrack, and man, all it took was one time of just, ironically enough, watching the sprint cars, and I was just like, all right, this is loud, they're fast, and it's pretty dang cool. And from there it just kind of started, and going in from that to starting to go regularly, and then get my own get my own car, and it's cool to watch that transition. The same thing that happened with friends of mine and people that have been around the sport for years, and then and then experiencing it myself is it's really neat. And with Bug growing up around it, what's your take on when you think she'll be getting to strap the helmet on and get after it?
Oh, it's kind of one of those deals. I'm not going to force it on her,
right?
But she loves to go to the races, and she likes to be able to ride things and stuff, and so it's kind of just up in. I mean, I say it's up in the air, but it can happen any day,
right?
I mean, it's just a matter of. I mean, she's already been driving her cart and stuff some, and just taught her how to ride a 4-wheeler here not too long ago, probably about 2 months ago. And so she got to do that by herself, and yeah, she's into the whole motor thing, and but she's still got her girly side and stuff. It'll be interesting to kind of see what road she decides to go down. I can tell you this: on the weekends that I don't have her, I cannot tell her that I went racing, because if I tell her that I was racing
and then she didn't get to go,
yeah, she's not happy. She's upset. So I just tell her, that I was working.
Yeah,
which is, it's not necessarily a lie. So.
That's true. That's very true, because right now, I mean, your racing is in a way working, because you're teamed up with Jose Moran running the sport mods and the late models for 2021, continuing after 2020.
Yeah, we're in preparation right now. I can't really say that we're gonna run either or more often than the other yet. Yeah. It's probably gonna be more late model racing than the sport mod stuff. We bought a open motor and stuff to where we can go run some comp and Lucas and outlaw shows and stuff this year. And so I kind of been going through everybody's schedule and pick and choosing, shows that I want to go to. And
right.
And the Southern Tour and Late Model Series, I'm sure we'll probably run, some of their shows, and possibility of us possibly getting a crate motor, maybe just to be able to kind of have an option to be able to do something else as well.
Correct.
But it's kind of one of those deals as well. I mean, we would love to, stay super racing, for the majority, if not all, but, we're doing it on, just Jose's, piggy bank, and,
right,
and so, without having, sponsor help and whatnot, financially.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
It makes it really hard, to run up and down the roads, and anybody that's ever done it, and even just traveling, chasing big races and stuff. I mean, everybody knows how much it costs to travel and to go run 2 or 3 days. And so we do the best with what we got. And we have, top notch stuff. I mean, all of our equipment, is definitely, premier, and we got good stuff. So it's just kind of I got to learn the ropes in the late model, and and I never really thought I'd ever feel like a rookie again. And holy hell,
and,
here I am. I'm 38 years old and I'm a rookie.
And that's what I was exactly gonna ask and touch next. Is it's a completely different beast than running a sprint car, because a sprint car you got a big old wing on the top of it and on the front of it to help with your steering, and then also help with setup and keeping it on the track. But it's a different ball game when you have a rear end that moves.
Yeah, my best explanation that I've had with quite a few people when they ask, oh, well, what's the difference? And I'm like, dude, if you look under a late model or even on the modifieds, it's like you have to have a college education to understand what's going on under there. And I graduated high school, so yeah, so it's pretty tough, but it's been fun learning, and I've learned a lot. And like I said, I feel like a broken record because I just constantly revert back to Chris. But if it wasn't for Chris Brown, we'd be out in left field, and he's taught me, so much in a short period of time. And like I said, we're still learning, and he's got a lot of wisdom to share. And so it's kind of one of those deals. Chris and I have had a long-standing relationship for many, many years, and he's easy to work with and to talk to, and it's just kind of one of those deals. It made the right fit and made life a lot easier trying to jump into something that that I was unaware of.
Right. Yeah.
So definitely having a blast doing it, and I can tell you this: they're a blast to drive. They're a lot of fun to drive.
So what's more fun though, a sprint car or a late model? Well,
it just depends on which part of racing you're talking. If you're talking about just brute speed and just badassness, the sprint car. The late models are no slouches by no means. It's not like they're really that far off of lap times and stuff for the sprint car stuff, but it's just a different type of racing. They run a lot more laps. You're pretty much kind of your shortest races and stuff for the most part are 40 laps, and a lot of them are 50 laps and 100 laps, and every once in a while, I think like on qualifying nights and stuff, they'll do like 30 lap features. But
right,
there's so much more tire game, and tire prep, and there's, to me, like in the sprint car, if you don't miss real bad, then you can kind of make the difference up a lot in the sprint car versus the late model. I feel like you have to be a lot more precise setup wise in the late model game. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things you can do from the driver's seat in those as well, but it's just a different type of racing.
Yeah. And, I've kind of, started to get more into watching late model racing, on a regular basis. I think I only missed one night of the first week of Speed Weeks over at East Bay, and then, catching them at Bubba, thanks to the broadcast that they did off the MAV TV Facebook page. And, just from watching that, man, I learned, 20 times more of what I thought I already did or didn't know, just from, because you can watch them from the infield or just kind of watch them from the pits or something. But, when you can watch a race and you're getting that close-up camera angle of how that car is working in the corner, you really can actually you can see a lot more of what it takes, once you're in the corner, and when you're getting off the bars and how the car reacts. And it's a game changer. It really is.
Oh yeah.
It's
pretty neat watching how these cars do work, and since I've been in the late models and stuff, and like you said, watching the Speed Week stuff, I've been able to kind of pinpoint, just off of car attitude, whose cars were good and whose are bad, and who's struggling, who's got a good car, and that's been I guess kind of neat on that point as well. Like I said, it's such a learning curve for me, and where I used to, just watch, sprint car race. It's just like, man, I could always pinpoint so much stuff in the sprint car stuff. Not that I've lost that. It's just, now that I'm kind of in the late model side of it, it's like, man, I'm seeing a whole different world, and the way the
Yeah.
racetracks change in the late model racing versus sprint car racing, and it's neat. Even just watching the All Stars and stuff at
Yeah.
East Bay the very following week after the late models were there, and how the racetrack was different for the sprint cars than what it was for the late model races.
Yep.
It was just all of that is so much different and changes, and like I said, it's just neat. I'm enjoying it. And not that I don't love my sprint car racing. It's
It's
I guess, and I told old Rodney or whatever on the radio deal. It's like, man, I'm just a race car whore.
I mean, I can see that. I mean, because sometimes, I mean, you'll sit there and you'll run 2 classes one night and then turn around and just run one, and then jump in and run 2 separate classes another night, and it's fun to to kind of watch and see the progression of of how it goes. I mean, I never thought that that I'd be watching you and announcing races with you running in a dwarf car, but here you are, and you're getting to do that with your Uncle David, and it's I remember I chuckled pretty good when only time I saw you at the Grand, I think, when I got a chance to say hey this year, was when you were pretty much laying under his car, just completely redoing the set. I was, hey man, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm having to redo it. And I'm like, what do you mean you're redoing it? And you're over there sitting there just redoing setups on a dwarf car, when yet for the majority of it, I've known you just to run sprint cars, some sport mod stuff, street stocks one year. Like, it just kind of, it's almost like we never know what we're going to get with you. Every year it's a roll of the dice. Well, what's Ray going to do?
If it's got a steering wheel and a gas pedal, I'll race
right.
it. Yeah, I was.
So
that Saturday deal at the Grand was hilarious. My Uncle David, he was wearing me out. I'm like, he'd come over, nephew. What? Come over here and look at my car. What do I need to look at it for? Well, because it won't go around the racetrack. I said, well, what did you do to it? I don't know.
That's
like, well, this ought to be fun.
And then then back almost at square one as far as the setup goes.
Oh, it was. I had to take everything back to just getting back to a neutral point, and then I went the old school way on the shocks and stuff. I pulled all the springs and stuff off the shocks and started just pushing them down and pulling them out.
Yeah, seeing how they're valved and just feel it. Yeah,
the old way, and this is what we got. All right, put this here, this here, this here, and I set all the ride heights, and we changed the front end geometry, and just had to change the attitude of the car to get around the racetrack. And then hell, he ran good. He came from the back to finish either 4th or 5th. So
yeah,
he had a good race.
And in a full field, I mean, I think we started like 20 or 25, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know they had, I want to say like 2 Bs or something in the mod lights, I thought. But there
was a mess of them, that's for sure. There was a lot. That's whew. But yeah, man. Hey, look, we gotta cut it short a little bit here, and kind of leave people on the fence of what Ray may do next. But man, I appreciate the hospitality. Letting RaceOnTexas kind of get a little inside look on what's going to go on this year with Ray Allen Kulhanek, and your racing with the Morans. And thank you again. Also for sharing your backstory on how you got into racing, and then overcoming the I don't know if you would call it the
accident.
Accident. Yeah, you know what? That's what we'll do. We'll mark it down. That's how we'll refer to it, because hey, look, you were on fire. It was a whole hell of a thing. So yeah, accident from hell, and the recovery from it to getting back on top of your game. And man, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just trying to make every race that I can. I feel like I said, like I'm in my prime and stuff right now. I don't think I'm going to get any better than I am now. I just feel like I say in the driving part of it, I'm still learning a lot of other things, but you know what I mean. It's kind of just one of those deals. We'll keep plugging away and try to get as many wins as I can before I hang up the helmet.
And that's not a bad goal right there. Just take it and focus on 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, and just make it happen from there. But yeah, man, again, we thank you for your time and joining us here on Shop Talk. And as always, folks, if y'all have got something that you want to know or want someone that you want to hear from, shoot us a message and shoot us an email, and we'd be more than happy to look into trying making that happen. In the meantime, until next time, I'm Caleb McFarland. Thank you and good night.